Hello everyone out there. My name is William Cask and I'm doing another episode of the Domestication of a Nation. I'm calling this episode, You Can't Get Past the Future Until You Deal With It in the Present. Did you like the way that I did that? Did you like that? Did you like that? I'm actually talking about the past. Okay? I am aware that a lot of people talk about the past in a very negative fashion. Like you don't deal with the past. You're not supposed to talk about that kind of stuff. You leave the past behind. And especially for those of us that's in the of the Christian faith, there's been a lot of teaching out there that really shuns people dealing with their past. And then of course you've got the other side where people are kind of aware of their past, but it's almost like when we talk about, we kind of talk around the issues. And I it's understandable why we do that, okay? Because it's very hurtful. Some people have talked in terms of, well, why relive that kind of stuff? Well, the fact of the matter is, we never lived it in the first place, okay? Let me explain a few things, folks, that might help us. And I may be doing a few videos on this very subject because it's a very challenging subject for a lot of people, okay? And I'm going to be introducing some other ideas with this concept because, when it comes to dealing with the past, it's a very tough subject to deal with. And I totally get that myself, To give you guys some idea, I do not come from a healthy home whatsoever. A lot of people talk about, some people come from loving homes, some people come from dysfunctional homes, and then we talk in terms of, well, they did the best they could, yada yada, blah blah blah. Once you begin to really dig into your past, deliberately digging into it, because here's the thing. I guess I'm going to introduce a little part of where I'm going with this. And one aspect is this. In one of the videos I had kind of given us an introduction of looking at our life as a garden. Well, the reality of the matter is, folks, our past is a part of our garden. We are aware of it. It is there. No matter whether we like it, want it there or not, it is still there. And the thing is, folks, it is indeed affecting us. Okay, now, the catch-22 is, I have a suspicion that the reasons why we are oftentimes taught not to deal with it is because of the painful aspect of it, which the idea is the fact that it does hurt. It is painful, okay? But I also believe that the reasons why it's become so taboo for us not to deal with the past is because of this. It's not that we wouldn't want to. Oftentimes, folks, we are actually still following the old weeds of the past, okay? The weeds. That's an aspect, that's gardening terms, weeds, okay? When we look at our garden, do we want weeds in our garden? No, we don't. We want to get rid of the weeds. We want our garden to be healthy and clean looking and only the good stuff in the garden. Well, the reality of the matter is, folks, the weeds, this is where it gets to be real tricky, folks. The weeds that are in our life, we did not necessarily plant. When I say that, think of it this way, folks. Who were the people in our lives that was an influence over us? Okay? Oftentimes we don't realize it because we're children, that those around us that were an influence of some kind of authority figure in our life, we oftentimes don't know that they may have had weeds too. And what happens is that as they're dealing with us and they're dealing with their own life stuff, sometimes their weeds get passed on to us. Sometimes passed on, sometimes forced on to us, okay? I'm there, folks. I'm right there. I did not come from a healthy home whatsoever. And the thing is, I have no problem with sharing it because, it's a reality that happened, okay? But here's the catch-22, folks. And I think that every little hint that I give may help people really want to deal with their past, and it's this. For the longest time, I was very hateful towards the individual that did what they did to me. I was extremely, I just felt like, and it took a long time for me to get to that point because in the family system that I grew up in, emotions were not allowed. You don't dare feel anything. Literally, all the emotions were shut off. I was shut down emotionally by the time I was 9 years old. Okay, emotions were not allowed. But it's one of those kind of things that you still show emotion on your face. I remember seeing the person that was over me. I remember a picture of him, and he had this constant angry look on his face. I'm just like, well, for somebody that's not supposed to show emotion, he's showing emotion. But it's one of those things, when you're so shut down, you do not realize what kind of what your disposition is showing. You don't see it anymore because mentally you're not supposed to. Okay, you're supposed to have no emotions whatsoever. So the emotions it's going to show anger, sometimes hatred, sometimes rage, and it becomes really etched in a person's body. There's been some people that I've walked by, I mean, they just have this constant angry look on their face, and some of the folks, they probably don't even know it, because that's all they've ever seen their entire life. They've never seen anybody happy. They've never seen anybody actually smile. I can tell you this much, folks, the one that was affecting me, I do not remember them smiling a single time without being drug-induced, not once. And the other person that was with him, I might as well let you guys, folks, it's my parents, okay? Both my dad and my stepmother, okay? They were both very angry people, very hateful people, and I never once saw my stepmother smile. As I'm doing the homework on it, I'm thinking, I never once see her actually smile. She never smiled. She always had this sort of, kind of like a cynical look on her face. It wasn't really angry. It was between sadness, depression, and a sort of a cynical, life isn't good enough, but it wasn't really like a deep anger. It was kind of like it's like with her, it was kind of like she had like an even keel, unemotional round to her, okay? But my dad, it was, oh my gosh, it was like always this angry, hate-filled look on his face. That's all I remember looking at. That was what I saw my entire life. Emotions not allowed. He was always angry. She was always cynical, okay? That's all I got, okay? So, that being said, they passed on their weeds into my life. And for me, it was forced on, okay? Well, the thing is, I've had a wondering if the reasons why we oftentimes don't really care to deal with our past is because the weeds are still affecting us. We're still under in a sort of the hypnotic trance of the weeds that we've been following all this time, okay? And so the thing is, and this is where it's going to get real tricky, folks, this part right here. The weeds are oftentimes still connected to an emotional need. There it is right there, folks. And that's the part I believe that really gets us a lot, is the emotional connection to it. Because at certain times in our life, we, as children, we're needy. We are needy, okay? And when life is happening and we're coming to our parents or whoever our caretakers are, and we are displaying obvious neediness, well, unfortunately, sometimes the people that we're going to meet those needs, they are unable to meet those needs, okay? Instead of us getting our needs met, we end up with a whole bunch of weeds, forced and just kind of just piled on top of us, and then we have to walk away with their weeds. And oftentimes, it leaves us hungry, it leaves us needy, more neediness, and whatever their emotional environment and atmosphere is oftentimes something we end up taking on for ourselves, because that's all we got to work with. So if they're angry and hateful and have that sort of real negative, just real toxic vibe to them, guess what we end up walking away with? Their toxic vibes. And we do end up as children taking it very personally, okay? We're stuck needy. When we have that emotional neediness. The thing is, folks, I believe that is probably why it's very difficult, even for those of the Christian community, to have the willingness to really deal with their past and to dive into it, is because as you start dealing with the weeds in your life, you also start kind of, it's like, as you're dealing with one thing, you're also shaking loose something else. The emotions that are still needing to be met, you start pulling those things loose. So it's like the weeds with the emotions, you start pulling that, and it's almost like, however we have learned in our lives to cope with life, ultimately we start pulling the rug right out under ourselves, okay? Even though whatever it is that we've been using to cope, to try to meet the emotional needs, as we start dealing with the past, we gradually start pulling the rug out from under ourselves. I mean, there's no real way around it, but the thing is, folks, what we're doing to cope with the mental, emotional neediness, it doesn't work. And that's the catch. It doesn't really work, okay? But here's the thing, though, that we need to look at is this. And the other point I'm getting with this, too, is when I talked about the aspect of the future. You can't move forward, folks, if you don't deal with the past. You can't, okay? The brain literally won't let you. It won't let you go forward, okay? we've heard the terminology when it talks about of being stuck. Okay, what being stuck actually means is you're moving forward and you kind of like, it's like you're spinning your wheels in a sense. You can't go forward any longer. And and especially in the aspect of the Christian genre, whenever we talk about following Jesus, well, we really can't. If we're stuck, if we have a weed stuck in our hearts that's preventing us, that's pulling us back from being able to move forward, well, the reality of the matter is, folks, that weed is oftentimes associated with an emotional need. We have to absolutely deal with it, folks. And the thing is, it's part of our garden. It's really a part of our garden. And there's nothing wrong, what's ironic about this, folks, is that there's nothing wrong with acknowledging the weeds of our life. It's when we allow those weeds to continue to fester in our life, that's when it becomes wrong. Because the consequences are, they do affect everything around us. They affect us internally. And so it's a must for us to deal with those things. And now, I would say that the other reasons why we have a hard time dealing with the weeds is this. The weeds are oftentimes associated with some kind of a grief. Okay? Some weeds of grief goes something like this. Big girls don't cry. Big kids don't cry. Don't be such a crybaby. Okay? My dad, big one. I didn't feel a thing because whenever he'd pick on me, I would fuss about it, and he would just say I didn't feel a thing. And it's ironic that he said that. And the truth is, he didn't. He was completely emotionally numb. I mean, he was shut down on all emotions, completely shut off. Other ones is any aspects of shame. If you cry, do you want me to give you something to cry about? Some time ago, I was actually visiting in Florida before this whole COVID thing kicked in, and I was just there's some like events going on where I lived in Florida, Clearwater, St. Pete, and I was just walking through some areas down there, just having fun, just walking through and talking to random people, and I had a wonderful conversation with one of the ladies down there. And what's ironic is that as we were talking about just talking about life. And, we were talking about emotions and talking about the past, how the mind works, and how the mind operates. Because she was in some kind of like the transcendental kind of stuff. So I talked to her. I don't have a problem with that kind of stuff. I was like, my faith is solid. I know what I believe in, but sometimes I like to talk to different people, find out where they're coming from, find out what it is that they're doing, because obviously they're searching for something. Okay. So sometimes I feel like that the reasons why people are selling certain things is because they're trying to reinforce their thinking. They're trying to find some way to reinforce it. It's just the reality, folks. But we were talking, and we're talking about different emotional triggers. And I hit the one, if you cry, do you want me to give you something to cry about? Her emotional atmosphere switched, and it was like there was clearly anger, and she even expressed anger, and I'm just like, it's interesting because she looks so clear and so together, and I thought, what are the possibilities that sometimes we try to use different things of the world to put on a false image of looking like we got it all together, looking facial like we got it all together, but deep inside, we're hurting, we're angry, we're hating. There's like this internal rage because life kept on happening, and we were not given the opportunity to deal with it. So that being said, I'm giving you just a little bit of a taste of why it is so important for us to deal with the past, and to know that there's nothing wrong with it. So I'm going to continue on this series in some of the next videos. Probably the very next video I'm going to continue with it, because there's a lot of dealing with this kind of these kind of issues, and it's very important to deal with the past. So thank you for watching. Stay tuned for another episode of The Domestication of a Nation. I'll see you in the next episode. See you there.